Welcome to Backbone Unlimited. My name is Matt Hartsky. In this episode, we're breaking down exactly what to do when a bear vanishes mid-stalk. Because if you hunt bears long enough, especially spot and stalk bears in broken Western country, this is going to happen to you. If you're not familiar with who I am, I've been hunting and guiding Western big game for over 34 years, and I've been a professional strength conditioning and nutrition coach for more than 30 years, and I'm here to help you become a more successful and consistent hunter and outdoorsman. So you spot a good bear, you build the plan, you close the distance correctly, you feel like everything is working, and then you look up and he's gone. Not really blown out in a panic, not crashing brush, not winded in some dramatic fashion, just gone. And this is the moment that separates emotional hunters from the disciplined ones because most hunters are just going to react right here, right? They're going to get emotional. Disciplined hunters analyze what happened. Today, we're going to walk through this step by step. Why bears disappear mid-stalk, the three primary vanishing scenarios, how to diagnose what actually happened, and what to do immediately, when to hold, when to push, when to back out, and how to prevent it from happening next time. So let's start with a foundational truth. Bears rarely just teleport, right? If a bear vanishes mid-stalk, one of three things probably happened. One, he winded you. Two, he saw you. Or three, he just moved naturally into terrain or cover and you lost visual contact. Your job is not to panic. Your job is to diagnose the situation. Let's break down each scenario. Scenario number one, the winded bear. If a bear catches your scent, you often won't see any dramatic behavior. He might lift his head, he might pause, he might angle away slightly, and then he just disappears into the timber brush or over a blowdown. Sometimes he doesn't even run. He just simply exit. So how do you know if the wind was the culprit? You've got to ask yourself, did thermals shift? Did I change elevation recently? Did I cross a draw that could have funneled scent towards him? Was I above him during falling thermals or below him during rising thermals? Wind mistakes are usually subtle. And here's the key. If the bear winded you, he's unlikely to reappear quickly in the same location, right? He's spooked. He might circle downwind to verify. He might exit to thicker cover. He might abandon the entire slope. In this case, pushing aggressively is almost always the wrong move because if he's alert and moving away cautiously, you chasing him is only going to confirm the danger. Now, scenario number two, the spooked bear. Is this visual or noise spooking him, right? If you skylined yourself, if you moved when his head was up, if you kicked rock or snapped brush abruptly, or, your pack or your clothing was loud, he might react. But again, bears often react more quietly than we might expect. Unlike deer that just flag and bound, bears frequently just kind of melt into the landscape. They drop over some deadfall. They dive into brush. They slip into timber. If you believe you were visually exposed, the correct move is not to immediately pursue. It's to freeze and observe. A lot of times bears will stop and relocate, They might pause just inside cover, or they might reappear in 5 to 15 minutes if they're uncertain. Immediately chasing is going to convert his suspicion into confirmation. Now, scenario number three, the natural drift. This is one a lot of hunters misread. The bear didn't wind you. He didn't see you. He didn't hear you. He was just simply following terrain. And maybe he fed behind a convex roll in the landscape. Maybe he dropped into a shallow draw. Maybe he entered into a brush tongue that you didn't see. This is where emotional hunters lose composure. They assume failure, but disciplined hunters assume pattern because bears are rarely random mid-feed. If he was feeding left or right along a seam, he likely continued that direction. If he was trending uphill, he probably continued upward unless he was interrupted. If he was feeding towards the timber at evening, that drift likely continued on into the timber. So the first rule when a bear vanishes mid-stalk is don't move immediately. You've got to freeze, try to observe, scan, and then we're going to talk about what to do in that freeze phase. Step one is to reacquire through your optics, right? Even mid-stock, if you can safely back up slightly and get glass on the area again, do it. A lot of bears that disappear are probably still there. You just lost that visual contrast of where they're at. Check shadow edges, check brush transitions, check inside timber lines. Often you're going to relocate him within a few minutes. Step number 2 is to evaluate the wind. If wind is now wrong, that may explain everything. If thermals just shifted and began flowing toward where he was feeding, that's a clue. If wind remains stable and correct, odds increase that this was just a natural drift and he's still around. Step number 3 is to study the terrain flow. You've got to look at the terrain and ask, if I were a bear feeding calmly, where would I go next? Towards the shade, towards thicker cover, towards a bench, towards a draw? Bears will follow comfort and efficiency, right? They're opportunistic in that way, not randomness.
If you're serious about becoming a consistent Western black bear hunter, I've built something for you. The Bear Hunting ebook series is a complete progressive education system, 7 volumes that take you from mindset to execution. We start with foundations and reality, breaking down the myths and mental mistakes that ruin seasons before they begin. Then we move into bear behavior and movement, so you understand how bears actually live, travel, feed, and use wind. From there, we dive into spring bear hunting and fall bear hunting, green up, food shifts, pressure, and why bears seem to disappear overnight. Volume 5 teaches you how to read terrain, aspect, ridges, benches, and edge habitat like a professional. Volume 6 sharpens your glassing and scouting so you stop missing bears in plain sight. And Volume 7, that's execution, spot and stock strategy, wind control, closing distance, and finishing the encounter. Buy each volume individually or bundle them all to save 60% off at backboneunlimited.com.
Now let's break this down into practical actions. If you believe it was wind related, you got to back out quietly. Don't push into that last known location, because if he winded you, he's just probably going to circle downwind to confirm or leave the country, and that's what you're looking for. If you push, you risk walking straight into his verification zone. Instead, try to pull back to a safe vantage point. Reassess the thermals. If conditions improve, re-engage for a better angle. If they don't, the stalk might be over. And that is hard to accept, but mature discipline saves more opportunities than reckless pursuit. If you just chase him, you're never going to get that chance again. If you back out, you might get that chance, whether it's now or later. If you believe it was a visual or noise exposure, try to hold your position. Give him time. A lot of bears that detect minor disturbances don't evacuate the whole basin, right? They relocate within a short distance. So give it 10 to 20 minutes. Glass edges of cover. Often you're going to see movement reappear. If you push too soon, you turn a recoverable mistake into a completely blown hunt. If you believe it was a natural drift, advance cautiously to the last confirmed location. Don't charge into it. Approach slowly. I can't tell you how many times the bears were actually there when I thought that they were gone. Use terrain as concealment. Check the wind continuously. Go slow. When you reach the last sighting point, pause again. Look ahead along that likely travel path. Check downhill benches. Check uphill timber edges. Check the lateral seams. A lot of times, if it was a natural drift, you're going to pick him up again within 100 to 200 yards. Now let's address a critical emotional trap. When a bear vanishes mid-stalk, a lot of times frustration spikes. We think, I lost him. You feel like you failed. And that emotional surge causes rush decisions. But bear hunting is not linear. Stalks break down and rebuild constantly. Losing visual contact doesn't mean losing the bear. It means you're now in the diagnostic phase, right? The figuring out phase. Now let's talk about timber scenarios. If a bear enters timber mid-stalk, your strategy needs to change. You have 3 options. 1, you wait for his reemergence. 2, you try to intercept his exit routes if you know where those are. 3, try to slowly still hunt through the timber, which is probably your worst situation, right? Option 1 is often the best. If it's early evening and he was feeding, he might just reappear to feed again before dark. Option 2 works if you know where that timber block connects to open ground ground and you can get there to see. Bears often use predictable exit lanes. And option three, that still hunting option, is the highest risk unless the wind is perfect and you are confident in going slow and ready for those quick shots, because inside that timber, visibility shrinks and the wind is going to swirl. If you pursue him into timber with marginal wind, you're just gambling. If a bear drops over some deadfall or down a face, try not to rush over that edge upright. That's how you skyline yourself and you're going to blow it completely. Instead, you got to creep to the edge slowly. You got to stay as low as possible. Use your optics before exposing yourself, just peeking around. A lot of bears bed or pause just below those convex breaks. Now let's talk about bears that vanish near last light. It's really common. They step into the shadows. They enter the staging cover. If light's fading, your patient windows shrink, but rushing here really often fails. Instead, you got to anticipate those evening drifts. If you know feeding direction and the nearest cover, set up where they're likely to reappear tomorrow morning. Now let's talk about tracking sign without being reckless. If you're confident the bear didn't wind you and he just simply moved and the terrain allows a safe approach, you can check for fresh sign like bent grass or disturbed soil and tracks. But this has to be done quietly, not in a bulldozing charge, because if he's still nearby, aggressive movement is going to blow everything. Now let's talk about a worst case scenario. You do push. You reach the last location. There's no sign, no movement, no reappearance. Now what? I would recommend trying to zoom out. You expand your glassing perimeter. You're going to look 300 to 500 yards in all directions. Bears can cover ground surprisingly efficiently without appearing rushed, right? They don't look like they're headed anywhere fast, but they're just constantly covering ground, and that happens fast. He may already be on the next slope. He may have cut in behind you. So let's talk about prevention. How do we prevent these scenarios? Most mid-stock vanishing scenarios are preventable through better wind monitoring, slower compression phase, right? The more disciplined movement timing, less skyline exposure. When you build in pauses, you're going to reduce those vanishing events, right? Stop more often, checking the wind, thermals constantly. By doing that, you're going to reduce those wind vanish events. When you move only when the bear allows, you're going to reduce your visual vanishing events. So let's zoom out mentally. A vanished bear mid-stock is not failure. It's just information. It tells you something changed. Wind shifted. You exposed yourself. The bear followed the terrain. Your job is to interpret that data, not react emotionally. Now let's build a simple mental checklist for this moment for you. You're going to freeze. You're going to check the wind. You're going to glass thoroughly. You're going to study the terrain flow, and you're going to decide which of the scenarios fits best. Then act deliberately, never emotionally just because you feel like you failed. Now let's talk about one final mistake: chasing the last known location too aggressively. If you sprint to where he stood, you're already behind and you're probably going to be pushing him, because by the time you get there, he's already moved again. Instead, try to think in terms of intercept and pattern. Where is he going, not where was he? If you can shift your thinking from location to trajectory, a lot of times you can recover more bears mid-stock. Bear hunting rewards calmer analysis. The mountain's not collapsing because you lost sight for 2 minutes. If you stay disciplined, a lot of vanished bears will reappear. If you panic, though, they're probably not. The hunters who consistently convert spot and stock opportunities are not the ones who never lose visual contact. They're the ones who handle it correctly when they do. Now, if you want to go deeper into Western black bear movement, pressure patterns, terrain positioning, and structured decision making, that's exactly why I built the Black Bear Hunting series of ebooks. It's a progressive system designed to help you understand how black bears actually use country and how to position yourself accordingly. I've got a link to those ebooks in the description. If you want ongoing access to the Team Backbone community, our classroom, my full digital vault of elk resources, bear resources, mule deer resources, and private discussion, and direct communication with me for planning, you can join Team Backbone at backboneunlimited.com underneath our membership tab. Everything we talk about here is connected. Preparation is not a single video, it's a system. Thanks for being here. Until next time, train harder, hunt smarter, and never settle.